Today I want to talk about cryptocurrency history before Bitcoin. So one of the questions that came up last week is, was there a cryptocurrency or an idea before Bitcoin? Was that a thing? How how did this all come about? I mean, I think you thought that Bitcoin was the first one, correct?
Yeah, my understanding is whenever it came out, I thought it was like 2012 or something. I thought that was the inception of it.
No, it actually came out in I think January 2009, and for about 15 months, Bitcoin didn't have a single nobody was buying it after 15 months. All that it was doing is people were mining it, and it was more like a hobby thing between a few people basically. And then one
Yeah.
day after 15 months, somebody posted on the Bitcoin forum that they would like to buy a pizza with 10,000 Bitcoin, and somebody took them up on that offer and paid for it with their credit card, and they got delivered two pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin, which in today's dollars that would be $400 million.
My lord. Whoever did that, I'm sure they're regretting it.
Well, he was interviewed before, and, and
Uh,
every and every time like and I was back when it was $1 million for 10,000 Bitcoin, so now it's just total cringe. It's like
yeah.
just die. But it does showcase the goals of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin. You shouldn't spend your Bitcoin. You should spend dollars, because your Bitcoins, you're like a fool if you do. That's what that showcased. But that was early on, so we knew that. I think that kind of established the price for it. I guess so. That was the first known transaction for Bitcoin. But
And what year did
anyways,
that happen?
that happened 15 months after it came out, so sometime in 2010.
Okay. Okay.
Now, whenever I started hearing about it was like 2012. That's when the price started going up a little bit. I think it was like at 100 maybe. So
Yeah,
even
that's yeah.
even when it hit 100, he was already like he had made a mistake. Even at $100, he
Right.
had made a big mistake, and that was only like a couple years later. So that's cringy. Hopefully, he kept a few Bitcoin. Okay, so to get us started out, the idea of a digital currency, in my mind, started out with Henry Ford's idea of energy currency. And this is something that I found that I thought was very interesting. Um, he came up with this idea that you would, because he was all into cars and oil and gas, because he had made the Ford, and he pioneered the commercial car in a lot of ways. So he was thinking, to measure currency, it might make the most sense to measure it from a form of energy instead of just measuring it from gold or central bank currencies. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, there was a headline back in 1921. He was saying, part of the New York Tribune, Ford would replace gold with energy currency and stop wars. Declares if government will give him muscle, Shoals plant, he can demonstrate success of plan to substitute natural wealth as a basis of world's money. So when he says saying natural wealth, he means like oil, gas, energy. So that natural wealth would substantiate the world's form of money. Does that make sense?
So is he talking about when you say like replace gold? Do you mean like replace it with like oil and gas and
Right. Well, we got to keep in mind, back
what?
then the dollar was backed up by gold, so it was a paperback currency based off of gold as the reserve asset. And he saw gold as a negative because people could steal it. Does that make sense? You could steal the
Okay.
gold. It's hard to steal a system, creating energy and just like take it over and run it perfectly well. That requires people and things, and a lot more components behind it besides just there's gold. Because gold, you can just go steal it. That was the idea behind this will stop wars, basically.
Right.
So, and what he means is, instead of a dollar backed up by gold, it says it right here actually, there's a quote. Under the energy currency system, the standard would be a certain amount of energy exerted for 1 hour that would be equal to $1. It's simply a case of thinking and calculating in terms different from those laid down to us by the International Banking Group, to which we have grown so accustomed that we think there is no other desirable standard. So he was talking Bitcoin ideas in the 20s,
Yeah,
which is kind of
that's
crazy.
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, this is because that's what Bitcoin is. It's mining, and mining is the digital exertion of energy that creates Bitcoin. Which then we think about in dollar terms. He was talking about making it just changing how dollars are evaluated entirely. So he wasn't saying a new
Yeah.
currency, a new like it would still be the U.S. led currency, but it's just purely based off energy instead of gold.
So it'd be based on like the like wattage and stuff.
Right? How much
Like
exactly?
how
Like
much?
energy, it would be. You could think of it as wattage. Yeah, that would be a good way to think about it because that could be measured in oil. That can be measured. That can measure renewables. That can measure anything.
Right.
So energy
Okay.
is. I think he looked at it as like that's the natural currency of value because that's what gives life. That actually makes a lot of sense because if you go all the way back, fire gave life. When the cavemen first created fire, that gave life, that gave energy in a way that they could control. And by doing that, they could cook food, they could do stuff with it, they could see at nighttime, they could bend nature to its will through energy. So I think that's the same idea behind making energy and the natural energy turns into our economic energy. If you equate the two, then I think the whole idea is that you get more of a balance in how things will work. Um,
Okay.
so
That
so
makes sense.
to me, it sounds a lot like the proof of work standard that Bitcoin uses: hours mined or energy exerted, which equals more Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is an encrypted digital manifestation of energy. So there was no way Henry Ford could have came up with the idea of Bitcoin at the time. But I think it's taking some of those ideas and putting them to work.
Right. Right.
And really, his idea was more like what the idea of Bitcoin has evolved into. Because when the paper was created, when Bitcoin was created, I think it was more meant to be at least some people say it was more meant to just be a currency in and of itself to be transacted with, which you can do that for sure. But this was like saying the dollar should be measured that way. It wasn't like a new private currency. So energy would be the reserve asset, like gold
Right.
was.
He was just making the case that energy is the better thing to base the currency off of versus gold.
Right, and to what would be that would be if the United States decided to take Bitcoin as a reserve asset. That'd be literally the same thing.
Right.
In my mind, it would be the same thing if that ever did happen.
Essentially.
Yeah, if that ever did happen, but I just love the fact that he was talking about it would end wars even back then, and I was right after World War I, so he saw a need for that.
Yeah.
I just think that's pretty cool that those ideas, like somebody was even able to imagine it back then. Um,
Yeah, that blows my mind. It's hard to
yeah,
believe.
yeah. But anyways, so that to me is the first idea of the. I guess at least some ideas were taken from Henry Ford's idea. The energy currency. It's actually possible now. Back then, I don't think it would have been possible. It would have required total buy-in from everyone, and I don't really know how they could have made that work. I think, especially back then, I guess I'd have to make it on paper. That could have been screwed with too. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't digital, and it
Yeah.
wasn't. It didn't. I don't. It couldn't have worked either. It could have been fucked with too.